The silent exodus, the massive chamber of the galactic trade assembly buzzed with tension as representatives from 1,247 star systems gathered for the most important vote in galactic history. Floating platforms held delegates from countless species. The crystalline Krahathi with their singing voices, the gas-formed nebulans in their containment suits, the proud feline Malthari with their golden fur gleaming under the chamber's lights. At the center of it all sat the human delegation, small in number but significant in presence. Ambassador Elena Vasquez adjusted her navy blue uniform and looked across the sea of alien faces. She had served as humanity's chief diplomat for 15 years, witnessing the rise of human influence in galactic affairs. Humans had become the bridge between species that could never understand each other directly. They translated not just languages, but entire ways of thinking. Where others saw insurmountable differences, humans found common ground. The motion before us today, announced Chancellor Thrixnine, the mechanical representative whose chrome body reflected the chamber's lights, concerns the continued expansion and influence of human civilization within our galactic community. His voice carried no emotion, but Alina detected something like concern in his optical sensors. Many member species have expressed reservations about human cultural contamination and territorial growth. Alina remained perfectly still as the accusations began. High Counselor Zephes, a being of pure thought inhabiting an energy field, spoke first. Humans spread their customs everywhere they go. They change how other species think and behave. This cultural imperialism threatens the diversity that makes our galaxy strong. The Reptilian Syndicate's speaker, General Stooks, flicked his forked tongue nervously. Human military advisors have trained our forces, yes, but they also learn our weaknesses. What happens when they decide we are their enemies instead of their allies? Ambassador Alina listened as species after species voiced their fears. The aquatic Deponians worried that human terraforming technology would destroy water worlds. The machine collective feared human unpredictability would corrupt their logical processes. The insectoid hive minds claimed human individualism was a dangerous virus that weakened their unity. Through it all, Alina said nothing. She had expected this day for months. The signs had been there in small changes, subtle shifts in how alien delegates looked at humans during meetings. Fear had been growing like a poison in the galactic community's heart. Furthermore, Chancellor Thrixnine continued, humans have been given access to technologies and positions of influence far beyond what their short galactic presence justifies. They serve as mediators in our conflicts, managers of our trade routes, and advisors to our militaries. This concentration of power in one species is unprecedented and dangerous. The Ethereal Federation's representative shimmered with agitation. We propose strict limitations on human expansion. Humans should be restricted to their home sectors. Their cultural influence should be contained. Their access to sensitive galactic technologies should be reviewed and limited. Alina finally stood. The chamber fell silent. Every being present knew that humanity's response would shape the future of galactic civilization. She walked slowly to the central platform, her steps echoing in the vast space. Honorable representatives, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. You have made your position very clear. You fear us. You see our differences as threats rather than strengths. You believe that limiting our freedom will make you safer. She paused, looking around the chamber at faces she had worked with for years. Some couldn't meet her eyes. Others stared with open hostility. A few, like Chancellor Thrixnine, watched with what might have been regret. You speak of cultural contamination as if sharing ideas was a disease. You worry about our expansion as if growth was aggression. You fear our influence as if cooperation was conquest. Elena's voice remained calm, but her words cut through the chamber like a blade. You have decided that the species which helped end the sector wars, which mediated the great peace of the Rim, which shared its medical advances freely with all who needed them, is too dangerous to live among you as equals. High Counselor Zephyr pulsed with defensive energy. We do not question human achievements. We question human intentions. Your species grows too fast, learns too quickly, adapts too well. You could dominate us all if you chose to, and there lies the heart of your fear, Elena replied. Not what we have done, but what you imagine we might do. You judge us not by our actions, but by your own limitations projected onto us. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages, their words lost in the chaos of translation systems overloading. Elena waited for silence to return. You want us contained, she said finally. You want us limited. You want us controlled. Very well, you shall have exactly what you desire. The vote proceeded as everyone knew it would. 847 systems voted for the restrictions. 312 voted against. 88 abstained. Humanity was officially contained to their home sectors, their cultural influence limited, their expansion controlled. Elena gathered her papers with careful precision. The human delegation stood together, their faces showing no anger, no surprise, no plea for reconsideration. They simply walked toward the exit with dignity intact. Ambassador Vesquez called Chancellor Thrixnine. Surely we can find a compromise, some middle ground that addresses everyone's concerns. Elena stopped, but did not turn around. You have made your choice, Chancellor. We respect that choice. We will not argue with it or attempt to change it. We are leaving the assembly, asked General Sturkes. Leaving everything, Elena replied. All human personnel will return to human space within 60 days. All human-operated facilities will be shut down. All human-mediated agreements will be void. All human technological assistance will end. You wanted separation. You have it. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humans managed the galactic communication networks that allowed different species to coordinate across vast distances. Human medical researchers worked on cures for diseases affecting dozens of alien biologies. Human engineers maintained the massive trade stations where species with incompatible environments could meet safely. Human diplomats mediated conflicts between species too different to understand each other. But the trade routes whispered. Councillor Velith of the Merchant Coalition, human navigators chart the safe paths through dark matter storms. The medical research added Dr. Cathara of the Scientific Alliance. Human doctors are working on cures for the crystal plague and the neural decay. The peace treaties, said High Counselor Zephyrs. Humans mediate 17 active territorial disputes. Elena finally turned around. Her expression was calm, almost peaceful. Yes, all of that will end. You wanted to limit human influence. Limiting it to zero seems the clearest way to address your concerns. This is blackmail, snarled General Sturkes. No, Elena said simply. This is exactly what you voted for. Separation, independence, freedom from human contamination. Congratulations, you won. As the human delegation left the chamber, emergency sessions began immediately. Panic spread through the galactic government as representatives realized what they had actually voted for. But the humans were gone, and their communication requests went unanswered. Asterisk. Within days, the first problems began. The quantum relay network, which allowed faster-than-light communication across the galaxy, started failing. Human technicians had maintained the delicate quantum entanglement matrices that kept the system stable. Without them, messages that once traveled instantly across the galaxy now took months to arrive. If they arrived at all, trade ships got lost in hyperspace as human navigators abandoned their posts. The safe routes through dangerous regions of space had been mapped and maintained by human exploration teams. Without their constant updates and course corrections, merchant vessels found themselves trapped in dark matter storms or pulled into gravity wells. Medical stations across the galaxy reported equipment failures. The universal diagnostic machines that could identify and treat diseases in any species had been designed by human engineers working with alien biologists. As the machines broke down, hospitals lost the ability to treat patients from different worlds. Captain Miranda Santos stood on the bridge of the human exploration vessel Resilience, watching alien distress signals scroll across her communication screens. Her ship was one of the last to leave the galactic core, evacuating human researchers from the Central Science Station. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander James Park, "we're receiving 17 different emergency calls from the station. Life support is failing in Sector 7. The artificial gravity generators are overloading in the Kwarathi research wing, and the atmospheric processors for the methane breathing labs have shut down completely." Captain Santos looked at the massive station through her viewport. Thousands of alien scientists worked there, pursuing research that benefited the entire galaxy. Many of them had been her friends and colleagues for years, but every one of their species had voted for human containment. "Continue evacuation of human personnel only," she ordered. "Do not respond to the alien requests." "But Captain," protested Chief Medical Officer Dr. Angela Chen, "people are going to die. The Kwarathi can't survive in standard atmosphere for more than a few hours." "The galaxy has made its choice, Doctor," Captain Santos replied. "They want independence from human assistance. They have it." As the Resilience pulled away from the Central Science Station, emergency lights flickered across its surface. Behind them, the greatest center of learning in the galaxy began its slow collapse into chaos. On the frontier world of Haven's, Director Robert Kim watched the last human transport ships lift off from the spaceport. His colony had been home to 50,000 humans and 2 million aliens from dozens of species. It was a model of interspecies cooperation, a place where different civilizations had learned to live and work together. Now the humans were leaving, and the delicate balance was already cracking. The fusion reactors that powered the city required human technicians to maintain their quantum containment fields. The atmospheric processes that created breathable air for dozens of different species needed human engineers to balance their complex chemical interactions. The agricultural systems that grew food compatible with alien biologies relied on human geneticists to modify crops for each species. Needs dots as the transport ships disappeared into hyperspace. Director Kim knew that Haven 7 would be uninhabitable within weeks. The aliens would have to abandon everything they had built together, all because they feared human influence more than they valued human friendship. Across human space, similar scenes played out on thousands of worlds. Humans withdrew quietly, without anger or threats. They simply left, taking with them centuries of knowledge, cooperation, and goodwill. The galaxy had asked for separation, and humanity gave it to them completely. The last human ship to leave the galactic core was the diplomatic vessel, Unity. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in its observation deck, watching the lights of Galactic Assembly Central grow smaller behind them. She felt no satisfaction in being proven right, no anger at the injustice of it all, only sadness at the waste of such potential. "Ma'am," said her aide, "we're receiving over 300 urgent communications from Assembly members. They're asking us to reconsider, to negotiate new terms, to help with the emergencies that are starting to develop." Alina turned away from the viewport. "Log them all, but do not respond." The galaxy wanted to learn if it could survive without human assistance. Now it gets that chance. As the Unity jumped to hyperspace, carrying the last humans away from the galactic community they had served for 2 centuries, the real lesson was just beginning. The aliens had voted to cage the species that had been their greatest ally. Now they would discover what the galaxy looked like without human hands to hold it together. The separation they had demanded was about to become the nightmare they never imagined. The galaxy learns its dependence 3 months after the human exodus. Chancellor Thrix9 stood in his private chambers, staring at reports that made his mechanical mind struggle to process the scope of the disaster. The chrome surface of his body, usually polished to perfection, showed signs of wear as he paced endlessly across the floor. The Galactic Trade Assembly had become a monument to chaos. Without human translators and mediators, species that had cooperated for centuries could no longer communicate effectively. The Quarathese crystalline song language could not be properly interpreted by machine translators, leading to 3 separate trade wars based on misunderstood negotiations. The gaseous nebulans found their chemical scent communications completely lost in translation, causing them to withdraw from all interspecies contact. Status report, Thrix9 requested from his mechanical aide, Unit 47. Galactic communication. Network efficiency has dropped to 23% of previous levels. Unit 47 reported in flat tones. Intersystem trade has decreased by 67%. Medical emergency response protocols have failed in 412 star systems. Colonial support missions have been suspended indefinitely due to navigation failures. But numbers could not capture the true horror of what was happening. The Deponine waterworlds were experiencing their worst ecological crisis in recorded history. Human marine biologists had been working on solutions to the algae blooms that threatened their ocean ecosystems. When the humans left, they took their research with them. Now entire planets were suffocating under toxic green seas. On the crystal world of Quarathea Prime, High Counselor Zephes materialized in the emergency session chamber, his energy field flickering with distress patterns his people had not seen for generations. The magnificent crystal formations that housed Quarathi civilization were turning grey and brittle, infected by a mysterious decay that spread through their quantum resonance networks. "The singing sickness has reached the northern continents," reported Crystal Singer Vithis, her melodic voice cracking with exhaustion. 17 major city crystals have gone silent. The harmonics that sustain our civilization are breaking down. High Counselor, Zephes pulsed with desperate energy. "What do our scientists report?" "The same as yesterday and the day before," Vithis replied. "We do not understand the quantum biology principles that human researchers were developing. Dr. Sarah Mitchell and her team were close to a cure before they left." The irony was devastating. The Karathi had been among the loudest voices calling for human containment, claiming that human scientific methods were corrupting traditional Karathi research. Now their traditional methods were powerless against a plague that human hybrid techniques could have cured in the insectoid hive worlds. Queen Mind's Oct experienced something her species had never known before: doubt. The collective consciousness that had guided her people for millennia was fragmenting. Hive nodes across dozens of worlds were going silent, their psychic links severed by interference patterns that human researchers had been studying. Unity speakers report increasing mental static across all frequencies, droned her primary advisor. Connection strength with outer colonies has dropped to critical levels. Some hive clusters have been silent for 14 days. Queen Mind Zekdes' compound eyes reflected her growing panic. The insectoids had voted for human restrictions because they feared human individualism would weaken their collective unity. Now they were losing that unity anyway, and the humans who might have helped them understand why were gone. The medical crisis was perhaps the most immediately devastating. Dr. Kathara of the Scientific Alliance found herself running a medical conference with half-empty seats and no solutions. The multi-species medical stations that had been the pride of galactic civilization were shutting down one by one. Sector 7 medical station reports complete system failure, Dr. Kathara announced to the assembled alien doctors. The biosynthesis labs that produced medicines for 17 different species have stopped working. Without human biochemists to calibrate the molecular assemblers, we cannot manufacture even basic medications. Dr. Velther, a spidery arachnoid physician, clicked his mandibles in distress. My people are dying from simple infections that human-designed antibiotics could cure easily. But we never learned to manufacture those medicines ourselves. The truth was becoming clear across the galaxy. Humans had not simply been participants in galactic civilization. They had been its foundation. While other species contributed their expertise in narrow fields, humans had been the generalists who connected everything together. They were the only species that could understand and work with all the others. On the fortress world of Maltheri Prime, General Rokthan paced his command center like a caged predator. The proud feline warrior race had spent centuries building the most powerful military in the galaxy, but their strength was crumbling with shocking speed. Strategic Analysis Unit, report on current defensive capabilities, General Rokthan growled. Sir, replied Colonel Vexter, our fleet coordination systems are operating at 31% efficiency. The battle computers that allowed our ships to fight as a unified force were programmed and maintained by human tactical specialists. Without them, our squadrons cannot coordinate complex maneuvers. But worse news was coming from the galaxy's edge. Long-range sensors were detecting movement in the dark sectors, regions of space that had been empty for thousands of years. Something was stirring in the void between galaxies, and the early warning systems that should have detected it weeks ago had failed. The Devourer swarm had awakened. Captain Miranda Santos received the first confirmed reports aboard the human monitoring station Deepwatch 7. Her crew had been observing galactic communications from the safety of human space, documenting the collapse but not interfering. Now her sensor officer, Lieutenant Park, brought her data that made her blood run cold. Captain, we're detecting massive biomechanical signatures at grid reference 7,714 N alpha. The objects are approximately the size of small moons and moving at significant sublight speeds toward the galactic core. Captain Santos knew exactly what those signatures meant. For 5,000 years, the devourer swarm had slept in the void between galaxies, hibernating after their last devastating harvest. Human deep space monitors had detected signs of their stirring decades ago, but human scientists had been working on containment protocols to keep them dormant. When humans left galactic space, they had taken their knowledge of the swarm with them. The aliens didn't even know the threat existed. "How many contacts?" Captain Santos asked. "Initial count shows 47 major vessels, with smaller support craft numbering in the thousands," Lieutenant Park reported. "At their current speed, they'll reach the outer rim colonies in approximately 6 weeks. The devourer swarm was unlike any enemy the galaxy had ever faced. They were not conquerors seeking territory or resources. They were harvesters, consuming entire biospheres and converting organic matter into more of themselves. They had devoured 3 galaxies before entering their current hibernation cycle. Human military strategists had spent centuries developing countermeasures against the swarm. They had built specialized weapons that could disrupt swarm biomechanics, created battle formations designed to exploit swarm behavioral patterns, and trained elite units specifically to fight this ancient enemy. But all of that knowledge was now locked away in human space. The first swarm contact occurred at the mining colony of Zerian 12. The attack was swift and terrifying. Massive bioships descended from hyperspace like living nightmares, their organic hulls pulsing with alien life. They released clouds of harvester drones that stripped the colony bare in hours, converting buildings, equipment, and colonists into raw biomass that was absorbed back into the swarm vessels. The distress call from Zarian 12 was the last communication the galactic core received from the outer rim for 2 weeks. When long-range sensors finally pierced the interference around the colony's location, they found empty space. No wreckage, no debris, no trace that millions of beings had ever lived there. Panic spread through the galactic assembly faster than the swarm itself. Emergency sessions ran day and night as alien leaders tried to coordinate a response to a threat they didn't understand. But without human mediators, the sessions devolved into chaos as species blamed each other for the crisis. The humans knew, accused General Stukes' reptilian features twisted with rage. They knew this was coming and they abandoned us. High Counselor Zephes pulsed with desperate energy. If they knew, why didn't they warn us? Chancellor Thrixnine. Optical sensors flickered as he processed thousands of data streams simultaneously. Review of archived human communications reveals multiple references to deep space monitoring and hibernation protocols. It appears humans were actively preventing this threat from manifesting. The horrible truth was sinking in. Humans hadn't just been helpful members of galactic civilization. They had been its secret guardians, protecting everyone from threats that other species never even knew existed. Dr. Cathara accessed her personal files, searching through years of joint research, projects with human scientists, hidden in technical reports and casual conversations. She found references to Project Sentinel, Void Watchers, and species protection protocols. The humans had been running a vast protective network that the rest of the galaxy had never noticed. As the swarm advanced toward more populated systems, desperate messages began flooding human space. The same species that had voted to contain humanity now begged for human assistance. Ambassador Alina Vasquez sat in her new office on the human capital world of Terra Nova, reading the increasingly frantic communications. Her aide brought her the latest batch of pleas, threats, and bribes from alien leaders. The Malthari High Command is offering us 3 star systems and permanent military alliance if we'll help them fight the swarm," her aide reported. "The Quarathi are promising to share their quantum resonance technology. The Scientific Alliance is offering full access to their research archives." Alina read through the messages with growing sadness. What about the Ethereal Federation? Hi. Councillor Zephys has sent 14 personal messages in the last day. He's offering to resign from galactic government if we'll just send medical assistance for the singing sickness outbreak. Through her office window, Alina could see human cities, bustling with activity. Refugees were arriving daily, not just humans returning from alien space, but aliens who had realized too late which species had truly been their friends. Human medical facilities were treating alien refugees from the plague outbreaks. Human engineers were helping alien colonists whose worlds had become uninhabitable. Human families were taking in alien children whose parents had died in the chaos. Despite everything, humans were still helping those in need. But the galaxy's problems were too vast for individual acts of kindness to solve. "Ma'am," her aide continued, "President Chen is requesting your recommendation on the Security Council's proposal." Alina knew what that meant. The human defense fleet had developed weapons that could hurt the Devourer swarm. Human strategists understood swarm tactics and behavior. Human soldiers had trained for this exact scenario. They could save the galaxy if they chose to, but it would mean human ships entering hostile space. It would mean human soldiers dying to protect the same aliens who had voted to cage them. It would mean risking humanity's future for species that had treated them as dangerous outcasts. Alina walked to her communication console and activated the galaxy-wide emergency frequency. For the first time in 3 months, a human voice would speak to the galactic community. "This is Ambassador Alina Vasquez of the Human Federation," she began. "We have received your requests for assistance against the entity you call the Devourer Swarm. We want you to understand that we have been monitoring this threat for centuries and had protocols in place to prevent their awakening. Those protocols failed when human personnel were withdrawn from galactic space." She paused, looking out at the stars where alien civilizations were fighting for their survival. "We also want you to understand that we hold no anger toward you for your decision to restrict human influence. You voted according to your understanding of the situation. The consequences of that vote are now clear to everyone." Across the galaxy, alien leaders listened with growing hope. Surely the humans would help them despite everything that had happened. However, Alina continued, "Humanity has learned a valuable lesson about the dangers of unrequited friendship. We cannot simply restore the previous relationship and pretend nothing has changed. If we are to risk human lives to save the galaxy, it must be on terms that ensure this situation never occurs again." She activated her secure communication link. To President Chen, "Mr. President, I recommend we make them an offer they cannot refuse." The fate of the galaxy now hung in the balance, dependent on whether the species that had driven away their greatest allies could swallow their pride enough to accept salvation from the humans they had feared and rejected. Asterisk.